the president went. The Syrian president came in and President Trump sprayed perfume all over him. And I just wondered, like, did he smell?
No. Let me tell you, that happens all the time, not just with the Syrian president, but I've seen it with other foreign leaders. I've seen it with members of our cabinet, myself. He has a cologne and a perfume. Yes. He's just showing off his wonderful scents.
So that is White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt in her weirdest and most awkward interview yet with Miranda Devine, who's the New York Post, a right-wing conspiracy theorist whack job who deserves all the mockery coming her way. And in this interview, Leavitt reveals that Donald Trump just goes around spraying people with his scents. It's a really strange thing to say. And then if that wasn't bad enough, Leavitt weighs in on the Epstein files, which she doubles down as a Washington hoax. She is peddling her boss's right-wing bullshit. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, so as you know, Donald Trump has suffered back-to-back brutal defeats on the Epstein files. The discharge petition made its way to the House despite Trump's best public and private efforts to stop it. Sensing that defeat and rebellion were inevitable, he then switched gears and said, okay, go ahead and vote for it. And then it passed virtually unanimously. Only one Republican voted against the release of the Epstein files in the House. Then Trump and Mike Johnson were both stunned because Republican senators were supposed to throw some grit in the gears and drag this thing out and delay and cause basically the Epstein files vote to die in the Senate. And instead, it just sailed right through on unanimous consent. So Trump has been screwed on this issue, and he screwed himself. So now his spokesperson, almost says mouthperson, his spokesperson, Karoline Leavitt, his mouthpiece, that's the word I was looking for, his mouthpiece and spokesperson, is out there just trying to regurgitate the same thing. There's actually nothing there to the Epstein files. It's just a hoax. Take it away, Karoline.
But if you look at how this Epstein story sort of evolved over the past week, it's classic Washington hoax.
Yes.
You have Democrats on the Oversight Committee leaking redacted information to their favorite reporter at CNN, who then pops the story with that redacted information and does not reveal that the unredacted version is available. And the unredacted version proves that the so-called victim in this email is a woman who is unfortunately deceased, but prior to her death said on numerous occasions that President Trump never did anything wrong and was always incredibly friendly in her interactions with him.
So Virginia Giuffre, was one of the people or one of the subjects of the emails that Democrats in the Oversight Committee released. Well, it doesn't actually undermine or disprove anything because the other emails, first it was Epstein saying that Trump spent time with her at Epstein's estate. That does look bad, number one. Number two, even if Trump is vindicated on the specific example of Virginia Giuffre, well, you also have Epstein saying to Michael Wolff and Ghislaine Maxwell that Trump is the dog that hasn't barked, and of course Trump knew all about the girls. Leavitt's not dealing with that. Leavitt's not addressing that part. She never attempted to do so because she has no defense. She has no credible defense. Instead, she's saying, well, what about Virginia Giuffre? Well, what about her? The Virginia Giuffre email does not disprove anything. All it just shows is that you guys apparently have accepted that Donald Trump spent a lot of time with Virginia Giuffre, an underage girl, at Jeffrey Epstein's.
And so it's a purposeful leak to try to manufacture this news cycle to drag the president. And we've seen this play out so many times. It is a classic playbook of the Democrats using their friends in the fake news to spin up a narrative about the president. And so we just don't tolerate it. We don't give in. We just call it out for what it is. And we move on and we focus on the issues that we know the president was elected on. And I would just add one more thing.
Except you didn't. You guys rolled over because you got screwed. You were just humiliated. You got crushed. Trump tried his best and was effortlessly defeated. You guys were humiliated on the global stage. His own party rebelled against him. The Senate just sailed it right through. Trump has been damaged as a consequence of this. The polling is disastrous. We'll get to that in a second. You guys didn't do shit. You delayed the inevitable. You sacrificed so much goodwill from your own base. You triggered a mass MAGA rebellion. You guys screwed the pooch on this. This was a 10 out of 10 defeat for you. And it doesn't seem to be going away.
On Epstein, I mean, the Department of Justice has turned over tens of thousands of pages to the House Oversight Committee and to the American people. I mean, they released everything that's legally releasable online or to the House Oversight Committee. They also tried to move grand juries to unseal documents in various states, and unfortunately those judges declined, and they've been fully cooperating with the House Oversight Committee. So this idea that there's files that the DOJ is hiding or that this administration is not being transparent is just totally false.
It's not false. You guys promised to release the Epstein files to the public. You solicited votes based on that commitment. Trump was uncomfortable doing so, but he did, however, reluctantly. And his mouthpieces, his fellow mouthpieces, like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and others also campaigned on releasing the Epstein files. Then after Trump was inaugurated, you all doubled down on it. You led your base to believe, you led the American people to believe you would release the Epstein files. The fact that you've released some files to some, congressional hearings and congressional committees of jurisdiction is actually not a substitute for the campaign promise you made to the American people. The grand jury testimony, by the way, under seal by court order, that constitutes a fraction of a rounding error of the 300 gigabytes worth of information that we call the Epstein files. So again, you're full of shit, which is why the polling isn't even close. You guys are getting your asses kicked on this.
Fallacy. And I understand people have questions, and when you're on the outside, you're skeptical of government, and people should be. But there is literally nothing to hide, and President Trump has maintained that this entire time. And so, again, this is a classic playbook being run by the Democrats.
That's so funny. Trump says he has nothing to hide. He says, while obviously hiding shit. And again, even his own base agrees. The polling on this is atrocious. A supermajority of Americans believe that Trump was actively involved in Epstein's crimes. Half of Republicans, and this is a cult of personality, say that Trump is participating in a cover-up. This is atrocious for you all. The smart thing to do, if you genuinely had nothing to hide, would be to just fulfill your campaign promise months ago, get it out of the way, and allow the American people, whose attention span is quite short, to move on with other things. You all are hoisted by your own petard. And to dive deeper on this, we have CNN's chief data analyst, Harry Enton, to crunch the numbers.
You know, usually Donald Trump has his pulse on the Republican base, but he did not on this issue. Because what are we talking about, Kate Baldwin? Well, GOP on the Epstein files. Approve of Trump. We're used to seeing approval of Trump among Republicans being 85, 90%. But when it came to the Epstein files, look at this. Just 44%, south of 50% of Republicans actually approved on Donald Trump when it came to the Epstein files. Compare that to this. What was the percentage of Republicans that wanted all of the Epstein files released? 67%. So what we were dealing with is simple mathematics. The Republican base was against Donald Trump on the Epstein files. They were with the idea of releasing them. The Republican representatives saw that and therefore were not afraid to go against Donald Trump, because this was the rare instance in which the Republican base was not with Donald Trump. They were actually with the idea of being against Donald Trump and releasing the Epstein files.
There you have it. I mean, we're going to hear more of this, but there you have it. Only 44% approve of Trump's handling of the Epstein files from the Republican base. With the wider electorate, with the American people writ large, that number is a fraction. But when Donald Trump loses 56% of the Republican Party on any issue, you know you have fucked up, which he did.
And one way that you have long been able to kind of gauge, at least if people are really interested in something, is how you're gauging on Google searches. What has that shown over the last
year? What is that showing? You know, back in July, there was this idea, there was this push, right, to release the Epstein files. And Mike Johnson said, you know what? I'm sending the House home. Adios, amigos. Goodbye. There was interest in it, but not to the degree that we're seeing right now. Okay, Google searches for Jeffrey Epstein versus a week ago, up nearly 1,200%. That we have seen more searches over the last 5-day period for Jeffrey Epstein than any 5-day period this entire year, much more so than we saw even in July.
And you know how much has dominated the news cycle in July? So again, folks, it's just a matter of a fact. Karoline Leavitt is lying. She's objectively wrong. She has no valid point to make. This is a black and white issue. the Trump administration really screwed the pooch here.
And more than that, the top associated search topic with Jeffrey Epstein was Donald Trump. This problem, simply put, was not going away. So what you were dealing with was many Republicans unhappy with how Trump was dealing with the Epstein files, many Republicans wanting those Epstein files released, and more than that, it was climbing in the interest levels, so it wasn't going away. So all of a sudden, the Republican representatives are saying, jailbreak time, adios amigos, we're going to leave Donald Trump. We are going to vote to release those files long before Donald Trump even said, you know what, you should release them all.
What are you seeing in terms of what people think really are the chances that the files will be released now?
We'll finish on that in just a second. Remember, the Epstein files are not a high salience issue. The economy and inflation, for example, are infinitely more important to most Americans than Epstein. And so perhaps Trump thought, well, we have a margin for error because this is not like a top 5 issue for people. So even if we get it dead wrong, who cares? The problem is you're sucking on all the other issues too. Trump's underwater on every other policy area. So for perhaps in a world where Donald Trump was really killing it on the economy and inflation and immigration and domestic policy and foreign policy, that people, maybe in that timeline, people might be inclined to not punish him so harshly or grade him so harshly on this scandal. But he has no goodwill left except with the diehards of his cult, like Karoline Leavitt. Everybody else, they're like, no, man, you have no margin for error here. You really screwed the pooch. You really need to get these files released. And then, of course, there's the CNN host asked, well, how much do people believe that the files will be released?
Okay, so we're going to hold this House vote, right? And we expect that a lot of House Republicans are going to say release them. But there is still a problem insofar as getting them released. That is, one of the biggest problems is the United States Senate. They may not even vote on it. And so here we go. This is, I think, a good sort of baseline understanding of will Donald Trump actually release any more Epstein files before the end of his second term. On Saturday, it was 50%. Now Trump says, you know, we should release them all. If a bill gets to my desk, I would sign it. But even so, it's still 72%. So majority chance that we will see more Epstein files. I think it's a good use of the prediction markets because it's a conventional wisdom baseline where people are putting their money. But it's still far less than 100% because, hey, look, we got to still wait and see if the United States Senate actually gets a vote on this.
And then, of course, again, I mean, this was put together before we found out that the U.S. Senate was going to pass it through unanimous consent. They're not even bringing it to a vote. They're like, fuck it. There's no point. Let's just sail it right through. So it seems like the American people believe that we're going to see something from the Epstein files, more disclosures, as we discussed during a video earlier today. It seems like Attorney General Pam Bondi really wants to drag her heels on that because she suffered a near panic attack as a consequence of this. But folks, there you have it. That was a weird interview that Karoline Leavitt had with Miranda Devine of the New York Post, talking about Trump spraying people, just hosing people down. That's weird. That's a weird thing to do to your subordinates, your staff, cabinet members, foreign dignitaries, and yet he's doing it. And then, of course, on top of it, she's desperately trying to breathe life into this idea that the Epstein file scandal, which has kicked Trump's ass so brutally, is actually a hoax. Pretty pathetic. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.